All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. We are here for our first episode of the female male perspective. And with my co-host here, Eddie Cunningham, we are excited to get real, get raw, and down to the issues that people are facing today. Eddie, how are you?
Good. Actually doing really good. Appreciate the invite. Happy to be here. This is definitely going to be a unique experience for me. I've done quite a few podcasts, traveled and spoken at conferences. But this will be my first time being on a podcast on a pretty regular basis. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I mean, we've come up with a ton of topics that we feel that people really want to get the female and male perspective. And I love your perspective on different issues and topics that people bring up on a regular basis. I mean, I've been watching you on Facebook for years, and you have this diplomatic way of saying things that nobody feels like they're under attack. And I appreciate that about you.
Okay, not everybody, because I'll be real. There's some people that want to feel attacked, and no matter what you say and how you say it, they're going to take it like they're being attacked. That was one of the cool things that I loved about yours and mine conversations over the last couple of years is, we're not just like shrinks with master's degrees and PhDs that are out there like talking about stuff we learned in a textbook. You and I have talked about relationships and breakups and divorces and kids, and like this is like real life for you and I. And I've always enjoyed our discussions about all that. So it's kind of cool to bring this out and start recording these episodes together.
Absolutely. And I am super excited about a lot of the topics that we've come up with. I mean, I don't think there's one topic that we've come up with that you or I have not been asked about by different people. And for whatever reason, people come to you and I to ask the craziest questions. They really do.
Because we've had the craziest lives. my mom once told me, she said, son, she goes, your life is just one of those kinds of lives you want to pull out a lawn chair and a margarita and watch. And I did when I did a dating profile. This is kind of funny. So I have mixed emotions when it comes to like dating apps and whatnot. So I've done that. I've tried them. I've tried lots of things. I've given up on dating. I've gotten back into it, whatever. But I was reading through everybody's dating apps, and I had a friend that was a female, and I got on with her because I wanted to see what are the guys doing, like my competition out there. What are the guys doing? I know that's going to be a whole episode that we're going to do, and I'm excited for that one.
Yes.
But everybody was like, "Hi, I'm Todd. Whatever, 38 years old. I've been in IT for 37 years, and I have 4 kids." And like, nobody's going to click on that profile. Todd might be a handsome dude. He might even be a great guy, but none of that came out in his profile. I'm goofy. I know when to be serious, but I love to have fun. So I did a 10 truths and 1 lie. And I had things like, was on X Factor, met Prince Harry, dove the Great Barrier Reef, wrestled a live mountain lion, served in the US military, lived in Hawaii, was in the music industry, sung in front of 100,000 people, blah, 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 went on down. I said, okay, only one of these is a lie. And if you figure it out, you get a free sub. Oh, that was one of the truths, was that I own a Firehouse Subs. And it was fun because it was a way to brag about yourself without actually like bragging about yourself, but saying, here's some of the things I've done, mill through and see if you can figure out which one's the lie.
Well, which one was the lie?
I've never been to Australia. So I haven't dove the Great Barrier Reef yet. It's on my bucket list. I'm going to do it, but I've not done it yet. So, but it was a lot of fun, and it got interaction, and it was like not, because a lot of the times when we're trying to interact with each other, period, whether it's online or whether it's in person, we come forward with an agenda, either to achieve something or to avoid something. Mm-hmm. And when you can break through that and just open up to, hey, let's just have a conversation. Let's just talk. This is going to be real talk. You go a lot further. You're a lot more real. And I think that's what people jive with. And again, that's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to what you and I are doing, because you and I have always had that. We're not coming at each other for something or to avoid something. We just like, let me vent to you about what I'm going through. And you, same thing. Let me vent to you about what I'm going through. And we've had some great conversations with that. So I love this.
No, I agree. All right. So let's let everybody kind of know who we are. I'm going to ask you questions. And you're going to ask me questions. And you and I have both agreed that we're completely an open book in this. One thing that I know for sure is that you right now currently are single, which I know I'm going to get asked a lot about. So, because for whatever reason, man, you create this frenzy of women around you. So let's talk about that.
I'm just a chubby bald dude, and I don't understand. That was really weird. So I like to have fun. I don't know, maybe that's it. Maybe I don't know, but I like to have fun because I know what you're going to bring up. You're going to bring up the bachelor auction from last night.
Oh, yes.
You got to talk about everything that happened before that this week too, as well.
All right, let's do it.
So my oldest son is getting married, and I've got my old wedding ring. I've been divorced for about 5 years now. So I had my wedding ring just sitting in my jewelry box, and I decided to have it resized, kind of restored for my son. And so anyways, they put it out on the internet that I was going to be in this bachelor auction up in Wickenburg. And I'm not going to say I like to stir the pot, but sometimes I like to throw things out there and then just watch people react. And so I put a picture of the wedding ring, and it was actually my son's hand with the wedding ring on it. And I did, because you see all those posts of, so this just happened, and then there's a ring or an engagement ring or something. So I just put, so this just happened, and it was my son's hand with his ring because we'd gone to pick it up. And but then if I hit enter down below and said the real story, which was gave my son my old wedding ring. But you had
but nobody read the rest of that post when they started posting.
No.
You created a frenzy.
And that was not my intention. I thought some people would laugh, but oh my goodness.
Katie and I, my publicist and I, we're sitting here and we're like watching the bing, 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 bing on your Facebook going, these women are crazy. And then your cousin is piping and going, calm down, ladies. He's not getting married, but you can buy him this week at this auction.
I love my cousin.
It was great publicity for this charity auction.
It really worked. We raised a lot of money. So for the total auction, they raised over $22,000 for the 3 separate charities that were being donated to up in Wickenburg. It was the Rancho Bar 7 was the name of the bar that was putting it on. The Flying E Ranch, which is a really cool dude ranch up in Wickenburg, was hosting the event there along with 96.3, the country station. Was an absolute blast. Everybody up there is just down home, good people. And yeah, I'll be honest, I'm still kind of in shock. Like I was expecting, people were joking, like, well, how much do you think you're going to go for? And I'm like, yeah, 3250, 3275 if we really push it, or if I unbutton a button. But yeah, I was genuinely expecting maybe $300 or $400 tops would be the average for each of the bachelors. So there was like 15 bachelors that offered themselves up. One guy, I love this guy. This guy comes out, he's probably in his early 70s. He comes out in his cowboy shirt, his cowboy hat, total rancher dude, wearing his chaps and kind of a very European bathing suit underneath. He actually went for like $1,800.
Really?
Yeah, it was the women.
Wow.
Yeah,
they were loving it.
It was a lot of fun. It really was.
All right, so let's talk about this. You sold last night for $3,700.
Yeah.
$3,700.
Again, I was in shock. Like it was weird. So standing up on stage, the sun was over the wall and it was in my eyes. It was hard to see who was actually bidding. I could kind of see it. And the video's on Facebook. My buddy that was there actually did a Facebook Live thing during it.
I watched it.
Oh, did you see it?
Oh yeah, you were bright red when you came off the stage. Like your whole head was bright red.
I was expecting like $300 or $400 tops. Like I was not, and I know it's for charity and whatnot, but there was 3 women that just, I don't know. Yeah, actually, Sherry, the one that actually won, she never put her hand down. She just left her card up, and the other women kept bidding, and she just left her hand up. And I was like, I was blown away.
On the video, she did not even remember how much she paid for you. It was hilarious. They're like, you got him for how much? And somebody else had to say to her, 3,700.
Okay, well, I'm definitely going to make it worth it.
You go, girl. I hope you feel like he's worth it. Like, you go, girl. So my question to you was last night, so what does she get for her $3,700? Like a night with Ed? Like, what does that mean?
Well, so we were told, hey, you're committing to at least a 2-hour date with whoever purchases you and whatnot. And so that's kind of what I was expecting. But for $3,700, I promised her, I said, we're going to do something fun. So I don't want to say too much because she might see this and ruin the surprise, but I'm thinking spa day.
Okay.
Maybe go to cool. There's I think it was the Elizabeth Arden over at the Wigwam would be great. Boulders has a really nice spa. Maybe just do a spa day and hang out and grab a nice dinner. And
you never know. I mean, she's a cute girl. She's a cute girl. And I'm thinking it's a good thing you read that Lou Paget book, just in case.
On the next episode of the Male.
So how did that go?
It make me blush again. Yeah, that's going to be another one of my favorite episodes coming up. And it's real talk about sex and pleasure. And we're not just talking about like the physical side of it. We're talking about the mental, the emotional, and the physical side of it, and even the spiritual side of it.
Absolutely.
So that's another episode I'm looking forward to us doing. And again, yeah, that was one of my absolute favorite books when I was in my 20s, trying to figure out how does this marriage thing work? How does this physical side of it all come together? I actually give that book as a wedding gift to newlyweds, especially young newlyweds.
Yeah, because you recommended it and we're going to be discussing it, I actually ordered the book and it's sitting on my counter, and Jay was like, why did you order this book? And I looked at him and I was like, because Eddie thought you might want it.
Oh, don't be blaming me. No,
and he knew I was kidding because I had my, yeah, okay, whatever. I said, because we're going to be discussing it on the podcast and I wanted to review it so that I know what we're talking about. And he was like, oh, okay, well, I'll probably take it when you're done.
Well,
I'm like, that would be good. You go ahead. What is the book called? What's the title of it?
How to Give Her Absolute Pleasure. Now it's I've actually recommended it to female clients who I've coached and whatnot to read it themselves. So it's not just a book about, I mean, let's just be real. It's not just like, hey, this is the clit, this is the vulva, this is how you touch it.
Right.
No, I mean, there's some of that in there, but most of it's about how do women think mentally about sex? How do you get them in the mood for sex? Because they're not like guys. I mean, guys, for the most part, we can just give us a dirty look and we're ready to go for the most part. But women, it takes a little bit. So the book goes into that. And actually there's women that don't even fully understand that either. And when they start having problems in their relationships and they're like, I can't figure out why I'm not turned on at all by him. I still think he's handsome. I still like being around him. I love hanging out with him. I'm just not turned on. That book has so many great answers in it about how you realize you work and your thought process can get in your way.
No, I'm really excited about that episode because I think that men and women have a lot of false ideas in their head about what the opposite sex wants. And I think that we'll be able to clear up some of those myths for people and maybe why they're not getting lucky as much as they would like to. Right?
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to switch gears for a minute.
Huh?
All right. I know something interesting about you, and I know that a lot of people know that you sing.
I do.
Okay.
Yep.
But what most people don't know is that at one point in your life, you were actually getting ready to sit down with Garth Brooks and really take your career to a different level. And that's pretty amazing because that means that you're actually really, really good.
I was at that point. Actually, I had worked really hard. It had been a dream of mine since I was 6 years old to do music. And one of the things I've always been really good at is networking. Because to be real with you, everything we want to accomplish on the planet has to do with relationships. It doesn't matter whether you're wanting to create wealth, whether you're wanting to create, happiness or do things. It's all about relationships and how we relate with each other. And you can only take yourself as far as you've gone. That's it. And without reaching outside of yourself for new knowledge and mentorship, you can't go further. You have to have that new knowledge and able to do that. And I had Garth Brooks had always been a hero of mine for a couple of reasons. One, he's a good singer. He's an amazing performer, but he's also a brilliant marketer. I love marketing. Because to me, and this is one of the things I heard Garth say in an interview, is that marketing is really about relationships. And I fully believe that. He completely changed the music industry with the way marketing went. So I had always wanted to sit down with him. And yeah, it came really close, but life happens. And actually, I had a meeting set up with him to sit down and have a writing session. And life happened, and we ended up moving back to Phoenix to be around family while we dealt with a pretty traumatic time in our life as a family. And we'll get into that in further episodes as well.
Sure.
But yeah, I still love music.
It's all about timing. And we all have disappointments in our life that hits at different times and kind of stops us dead in our tracks. I mean, last year, everything in my life with like mini classes and workshops and everything was just like climbing. I mean, we were just moving. And then COVID happened. And we're like literally starting over now from where we were a year ago. A year ago, we had momentum. My last class I did last year was actually full. And now we're back to square one where we're just building awareness again. And it's hard not to get disheartened by that kind of stuff, but recognizing and realizing there's a reason behind the timing and having faith in that and moving forward. So I guess my biggest question for you with that now is, where are your hopes and dreams with singing now? Have you given it up? Are you still considering pursuing it?
I don't. Okay, that's a good question. I wasn't expecting that. I've thought about it. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say that it wasn't this nice fantasy in the back of my head of how it'd be to finally record an album and release it and get it out there. And it might be something that I would do. I'm really happy with my life, with who I am, with the things that I'm doing. Starting the beard oil company is going to be a fun venture to do. The restaurant's been amazing to own. I own the Firehouse Subs, if people didn't know that, here in Surprise, Arizona. I'm actually selling that just because I've got so many other opportunities, like doing the podcast, doing the speaking, which is really what I'm passionate about. And that's one of the things. So if I never do music, I'm okay, because one of the reasons why I loved performing, because I liked recording, I liked being in the studio. That was fun to do. But what I loved was being on stage. I loved being in front of people. I loved feeling that energy. And more than that, the songs that I loved performing were the ones that actually touched people, to where it was like, I want to make you think. Movies that I love, it's all about thinking. It's all about how do I, again, change the mindset. So, and again, it was another reason why I was a big fan of Garth Brooks, is because most of his music is stories that tells a story that you can relate to. So I'm finding a lot of my fulfillment that I had prior to everything when I was performing on stage. I'm finding that getting back up on stage, doing the speaking, doing the coaching, doing the podcast and the recording like this. I'm really getting that same feeling of accomplishment that I had when I was singing in front of 100,000 people.
Yeah. And I think it's because you are a person that is seeking purpose for your life, and you bring purpose. You're fulfilling that purpose when you're reaching out to the masses, because you have a message. You have a lot of messages, and they're really received by people. And I appreciate that about you. You're an influencer, and you're so humble about it. And I really appreciate that about you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, what questions do you want to ask me? I'm almost scared.
God, do we hit the hard ones first, or do we start with the? All right. So one of the things you said is that COVID kind of, threw things on its head. Okay. As an entrepreneur, there's different mindsets to have. What was it about your mindset that kept you? Because I'll be real. I've talked with some restaurant owners that have lost their restaurants, nutrition shops, friends of mine that are other entrepreneurs that I'll be honest, they just gave up. They seem to go, it's not my fault. I can actually quit now and it not be my fault. And they just kind of floated and existed, but you didn't. You actually have turned it around and turned it into more of thriving than just surviving. And I want to know, what was it about your mindset that got you, I guess, to push through that and stay in that thrive?
That's a great question. I think for me, what it was, you know what, COVID, I'm not going to let you kick my butt. That's number one. Okay. Bottom line. Okay. So I can't be in front of people right now in an in-person scenario. Okay, fine. I'll try Zoom. We tried Zoom. I'm like, I hate Zoom. For these purposes, I think it's great. But when you're in a class setting, you can't get the interaction. And my workshops and my classes are very interactive. I get my audience to ask me questions. I get them to think. I get them to participate. And you can't just do that on Zoom. It's not the same.
And they can't you in person. When you see that one person kind of drifting, you can go over there and reconnect with them again. Yeah, you can't. That's hard to do on Zoom.
Yes. And I have so much energy when I'm in front of people. And I had people that took my classes live and then they took my classes on Zoom. And it's not that same energy that you feel. I bring passion when I'm on stage, and I'm sure you do too. And you engage people and they listen to every word that you're saying when you're in person because they can feel you. When you're on Zoom and you're teaching a class, it's like Charlie Brown's teacher sitting out there. If somebody walks into the room, they can be distracted. They can walk away. They're not fully engaged and taking in everything that they've paid for. So I didn't even want to charge them for the classes because I'm like, they're not getting what they need from this. So I decided to go different directions. And that was publish my first book that had been on hold for a while. So we took that time to fully edit. I sent it out to test groups during that time because I wasn't convinced I was going to publish Finding Your Voice. I was like, well, I wrote it for me. It was a great healing experience for me. I got it all out.
All right, let's talk about that then. I want to focus on that. So
okay.
Go back to when you came up with the idea, and why did you decide to actually write the book in the first place?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so I was at breakfast with my mom and I get visions. And okay, so you know what? There are people out there that are skeptics. Fine, be skeptics. I don't care. I have gifts. They are what they are. And I was sitting at breakfast with my mom and I had a vision. And I was standing on a stage with a bunch of women in front of me and they were crying, but they were healing tears. It was tears of joy and release. And I look at my mom and I'm like, Mom, I think I'm supposed to do these women's workshops. And then I'm like, I think I'm supposed to write a book. And she's like, okay, because everybody says they're going to write a book and nobody writes a book, right? Sure. So I'm like, no, I accept the challenge. I really felt like it was from the Lord. I'm like, okay, Lord, like if this is my calling and this is what you want me to do, I'm going to do it. The next day, I woke up and the entire outline for the workshops was downloaded in my head. Everything down to the steps. I recently just turned them over to Katie so we can figure out how to put those together, but it's from that day. That outline for the workshops became the outline of the book.
Okay.
It was like all there. And then at the time, I was in a relationship that was in complete and total contrast from what I was putting out in the book.
Love it.
In that relationship, I would be a fraud if I wrote that book. And I remember there was a morning where I rolled over and I looked at him and I was like, if I write this book in this relationship, I am a total incomplete fraud and a lie.
It's amazing you say that. It really is.
Yeah. Why?
Well, because I went a similar experience with me writing the book, my book that I'm working on. Mm-hmm. Not like the full-on vision, but just the idea of when I started writing it, I had to look at my life and go, okay, yes, I know these are the principles I teach, but which right. one am I not fully living or have I not fully mastered that I need to work on? And it's one of the reasons why I kind of set dating aside now. And I've been working so hard on me, because it's like you said, you don't want to feel like a hypocrite. And I mean, the truth is it's not black and white. It's not all or nothing when it comes to your growth and your journey here on this planet. It is all about working towards it. It literally is all about the journey and the direction that you're heading the entire time that you're here. And we slide, we go back and forth and whatnot. But I wanted to live as much in integrity with the things that I want to teach other people, like you said, it held me back on writing the book. So I had that moment a while ago, so I can totally relate to that. And I'm glad you had that. So what changes did you make then besides dumping him?
Well, it took me a little bit of time, and it was funny because I had written a couple of chapters, like little minor things that had come up, right? Like the chapters would be downloaded in my head. I'd wake up at 4:30 in the morning and just start writing. I look at the book now and it's like, wow, I actually wrote that, because I don't feel like it actually came from me. I mean, that's the cool thing about it. Okay. So as things would happen, I would just wake up and the words were there. And I would just start writing. And when I would go to type it, there'd be very little editing that came out of the typing it. It was just the whole chapter was there. And it would only take me like an hour and a half to write an entire chapter.
See, that's amazing.
Yeah, I would be done before anybody even woke up. It's crazy.
I have to get out one way when it comes to writing, because there's actually a friend of mine who's a best-selling author. She kept pushing me to do the book. Mm-hmm. And one of my big obstacles, there's two really big obstacles to doing it, but one of them was when I would sit down to write, I'll be real, I'm a grammar Nazi. You know, Facebook drives me nuts because people don't know your, and that drives me crazy, you know, or when someone's talking and they say mount, you know, and they leave a T out of the middle of mountain. But that's just me, and I get it, but it's the same thing when I'm writing. Like I start editing while I'm writing, and she gave me a verbal smack upside the head and was like, just write, write, start writing and don't stop writing, get it all out, let a professional editor help you on the backside.
It's true.
Okay, but my hard part is I like to write the way I speak. I don't speak perfect grammar. You end up with like 5 commas if you're going to do proper grammar in my one sentence. But that's amazing. That's amazing. An hour and a half to pump out a chapter. You definitely have help and guidance on that, you know, but you even said like the words don't come from you. I would want to argue that a little.
They come from me, but there's thought processes in there that were given to me for the purpose of this book. This book was clearly a calling. It was something that I was meant to do because of the different things that I have experienced in my life. And people ask me all the time, they're like, okay, like you write your story. Like I actually had to let my mom read the book and all of that, because there's things about my childhood in there that affect my mom.
Yep.
And affect my family. And I needed to know that they were okay with it. And, you know, people are always like, did you write about, you know, your last marriage? Did you write about your first marriage? I mean, let's be honest. I've been married 3 times. Clearly, I am not an expert on marriage. I can tell you what I am an expert at, not being married. I believe that marriage should be on a 5-year contract. And at the end, you ask each other if you want to renew. And if you have kids, you work it out on paper before you actually have the kids. But we'll get into the reasons why I believe that later on down the road. Okay. But
you believe that genuinely, or were you just kidding?
I really do.
A 5-year renewal?
Mm-hmm.
It becomes like a landlord lease kind of thing.
Well, yes and no. Here's the bottom line. When you're dating, you both work at trying to make the other person happy. You both work at the relationship, because you know that if you don't, that person can leave.
Oh, that's going to be a good episode.
It's going to be a good episode. And we might even have some like,
I think we have some differing things here.
Friction. And I like it. But the bottom line is this: with this book, I poured out my heart and soul. And at the end of the day, my story, the first chapter of the book, is the last chapter that I wrote. And people believe when you're writing a book that you have to start from the beginning and go to the end. Maybe if you're writing a novel, but at the end of the day, if it's a book like this, you can create your outline, and as a chapter comes to you, it may be chapter 10, but you haven't written the other 9 chapters. It doesn't matter. Just start writing if it comes to you. I can't sit down and say, okay, today I'm going to write. It doesn't work that way.
It's the same with me. And, you know, you were talking about some of the blocks that stood in the way of wanting to do it. And one of my big ones was the same one that you just said. And that was some of my biggest traumas were caused by people that are still alive. and have become absolutely amazing people and inspirations to me. But if I write the truth about what my life was like and the things that basically pushed me to want to be better and whatnot, how would that affect those people? Because I love them. They're still in my life. They also became, one of them became one of my greatest inspirations of overcoming demons and becoming a good person. And I understand we could write that way, but my worry was people would read this and they would focus on the hard time and not focus on the growth and then the results of that growth. And it was in the same conversation with my friend who was the author who just said, just write the freaking book. And I went to sleep that night because she goes, your problem is you're trying to write the finished product. She goes, just write. She goes, and then we can go back and we'll read the chapters and we'll hand them to the people you're worried about hurting and ask them for their permission. And then we can even rewrite it to make it so, they're pleased with it as well. And there's so I went to sleep that night, just not able to get it off my mind. I went to sleep. I had a dream, amazing dream. Just it totally hit me. I woke up and in an hour I'd written the entire foreword to the book. And like you said, the whole outline just kind of made sense. And
you're an amazing writer. You've sent that to me. When we first met, you sent me the portion that you had written.
Yep.
I was entranced by your words. I was like, how have we not finished this? This is amazing. You are so eloquent. You're way more eloquent in your writing than I am. This is real. Like, this is who I am. This is real. I don't worry as much about being totally proper in my grammar and that type of thing. I want my book to be my words. So when people read my book, they can hear my voice speaking to them because they know it sounds like me.
Yeah, I'm very much a visual storyteller.
Yes. The pictures you create are amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
That one was a total gift from God. I know so the foreword's called The Library. It's basically the vision of it. And I'm excited that might be an episode that we'll talk about too.
Definitely.
But I share, it's when I'm speaking, when I go to conferences and whatnot, I share from my heart. I share from my personal stories of things that I've been through. And people are like, well, how can you be so vulnerable? And I used to feel vulnerable when I first started this years ago. And people were asking me to get up and tell my story and the things that I'd overcome. I felt vulnerable because I took it personally and I wanted approval. Well, I got to a point a while ago where I honestly don't care what you think of me. I don't feed off of it. I don't feed off of praise. I don't feed off the negativity either. Neither of them really feed me. Now, does it feel good to receive compliments? Absolutely it does. I appreciate them. But that's not what I pursue. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
When somebody absolutely hates my guts and sends me a hate email and whatnot, I don't take it personally because I know that each one of them are viewing the thing that I've done and the thing that I've said through the filter of how they want to see it, how they need to see it. And so that's how I started writing. I took that, I threw it out there. I'm excited for it. Vulnerable.
Well, and I changed names and details of everybody's story in the book. And most people are like, you wrote a whole book about you? No, I did not write a whole book about me. I write about different women whose stories are triumphant of obstacles that they overcame, that they allowed me to share their story. And I changed the details and I changed their names so that other people wouldn't know who they were because I respect their privacy. They all told me that I could use their real names. I chose not to because I wanted to protect them. Now, there are sprinkles of my story throughout the book. And sometimes it's not my name. You don't know that it's me. And I used other characters. But I did that to preserve the privacy of the people that these stories involve. Now, when it came to probably the hardest part, I mean, I had to call cousins and I had to call, different people in the family and say, listen, I have a book coming out. It is about molestation in the family that happened to me with a family member. And this is your brother. This is your blah, blah, blah. And, he is deceased now, but I wanted you to know that I wrote about this. And I wrote about this because it was important for me to be able to depict the forgiveness that I gave him in person at a later date. and that story and that chapter would not have been as powerful had I not shared what had occurred. And I also wrote at the end of my story, I'm not sharing this with you because I want sympathy. I'm not sharing this with anybody because I want anybody to feel bad for me. I would not take anything back that's happened in my life, not one piece of it, because it made me who I am today. So, like I said, I wasn't going to publish it. I sent it out to a test group of people, Katie being one of them, who actually got to read one of the first manuscripts that came out. And it's so funny because when she pulls out her manuscript, it's like the whole front of it is just written on, right? and she's like, you have to publish this book. And everybody who had test read it for me was like, no, you have to publish it. I'm like, okay, I'll publish it. I will. I mean, my second book that I've already written will come out summer, fall, and it's a real estate book. And I'm excited about that one, but it's way more technical. It's not as heart of the matter. And I like the heart of the matter.
Yeah, that's me too. I'm not, I've got to have heart completely in it.
Exactly. All right. Do you have any other questions for me?
Yes, there was actually a really good question that I wanted to ask you. I love this one. So if you could go back, I know you said you wouldn't change anything that happened to you, but if you could go back and visit you at a certain age and change the mindset of that age, that person, what age would it be and what would be the mindset change you would offer?
I definitely think it would be in adolescence, probably middle school and high school. I never felt pretty. I never felt like I fit in. I was always the ugly duckling in my eyes and the person who was always sitting on the sidelines. Isn't that funny where we come today, right?
I'm serious. That's one of the weird things about the whole bachelor auction thing and all the other online stuff that happens. It's like, I was always that kid that I never felt like I belonged. I never felt like I fit in with anybody. I just saw things differently. I thought differently than everyone. And the funny thing is I was blessed that I lived in the same house from kindergarten until the end of my junior year. And I had a lot of friends that I went from kindergarten all the way up through high school with. And we've all recently reconnected. That's one of the things I do like about social media. And when I've gotten to get down with them, one of the questions I always tend to ask when we get a chance to actually meet and talk is, I just want to know, how did you see me when we were in elementary school together? Like how, because the way I thought people saw me compared to the way they actually did see me is I've yet to have it actually match up. So it was, anyway, I know I'm bunny trailing on that, but it's.
No, it's true though. But it's interesting because people really did see me how I saw me. I was the awkward one. I was the one who didn't know how to have girlfriends. All my friends were boys, probably because of the abuse from, before. Like I never felt like I really fit in. Boys had no drama. So I would hang out with all the boys because there wasn't any drama. We would go, four-wheeling, off-road. We would go hiking up a mountain. Of course, I had to have my umbrella because I burned so easily. But like, they were always just cool to hang out with, Yes, it was me with an umbrella, long sleeves, hiking a mountain. That was me. I always wanted to go river rafting, but I couldn't because of the sun. So even with sunscreen, it's like not enough. So, but I also grew up in a very skinny state. And I grew up in Colorado, and everybody around me was so much smaller than me. And Katie and I were actually talking about this today. And I felt so big next to these girls. Clearly, I have Viking blood in my body, and I have a thicker, curvier body. I wasn't even fat. I was just a bigger girl than these other girls. And it wasn't until I actually moved to Florida that all of a sudden I realized that other people thought that my figure was attractive, and it was almost kind of freeing to me because I felt so out of place growing up. And all of a sudden I started to realize, okay, well, maybe I am cute. Like, I'm not the most beautiful woman in the world, but at least I'm cute, and I started to kind of own that a little bit. but it wasn't until then. And I would go back and I would tell my younger self, and that's actually a topic of a book I'm actually considering, is discussions with our younger selves. And what I would tell my younger self is, be you, be who you are, be strong in who you are, and know that you, as you are okay. You're beautiful, you're funny, you're perfect the way that you are, and stop comparing yourself to everybody else.
That's huge. Comparative thought is just absolutely destructive, especially when it's just a fantasy we really make up in our own head, comparing ourselves to what we should be or could be and whatnot compared to what we really are. And acceptance of self in the now is really, really, really important to self-mastery. I love this question because I use this a lot when I counsel with people, and we talk about past traumas. So I love the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I was homeless living in a car in Utah when a billionaire by the name of Bill Gould actually took a little bit of an interest in me. And that was the first book. He gave me a whole list of books to read. That was the first one he had me read, and absolutely fundamentally changed my life. But one of the things that, so here's the premise behind everything that I talk about and teach about, is that, and it's the premise of the book. You're born pretty much a blank slate. You are a clear slate, except for the way we love and how we see ourselves. We're actually very pure in that. We're very innocent in that. You take a baby and you hold the baby up to a mirror. A baby will not look at itself and go, "Oh my God, look at these rolls. Like, I got to get ready for beach season, coming up." And instead, and I always ask this question. I'm going to ask you this question. What is the first thing a baby does when you hold it up to a mirror?
They smile.
That's the second thing. And that's the most common answer, though. I love it. But it is. That's the second thing they do. The first thing they do is they make eye contact with themselves. They connect. They actually connect. You'll see them. They'll look, and they're not looking anywhere else on themselves except their eyes. And then they give themselves love, which comes out in a smile, a giggle, of, moving or whatnot. That's the real us. That's the real us. That's the perfection of us that we were created as. And we were created perfect. And here's the truth. One of the greatest lies that everybody believes is nobody's perfect. The truth, the true belief, if you can accept it and live it, is that everybody is perfect. You walk out into a forest full of beautiful trees. You don't go, "Oh, well, this one's got an extra branch over here, so it's ugly. I'm going to dismiss it." Because you would dismiss every tree out there. And that's what we do with each other as humans, as ourselves, is we're a little bit different than this idea of perfection. And so because we'll not hit that, we'll tear ourselves down and go, "Oh, I must be ugly because I don't hit that perfect of perfection." The truth is, though, flip it around, you're absolutely perfect the way you are. You were born perfect. You were unconditional in your loving of self and others in the beginning. The next thing your parents did, though, is they taught you to communicate. And as soon as you learn to communicate, the next thing they did was teach you their version of who you are supposed to be. And it's not really their fault, because it's how they were domesticated as well. They were taught to be versions that other people saw them as. And it was punishment and reward to get you to be this person. And then traumas happen.
Societal boxes.
Sure. I mean, it starts with they create the image of self that you're supposed to be. And at first it's just your parents, and then it's your siblings if you have older siblings, and then it's your friends, and then it's teachers, and then it's professors, who don't even get me started on the education system. And then it's media and social media and blah, blah, blah. There's all these, and it becomes a cacophony of just a horrific amount of voices constantly telling you who you're supposed to be. So one of the things that I do work, and this is kind of what we talked about a little bit ago. When I first read the book and I first started working on myself, I started having these moments come to me, these memories come to me of times where things happened that changed the course of how I thought and saw things. So first time I was molested, I was 4 years old. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out actually who had even done it, but I just knew that, again, this is going to be a podcast about being real and blunt, but as a kid, I knew what blowjobs were. I knew what touching was and whatnot. I didn't call them blowjobs, but I knew people put mouths on penises. And it was, at 5 years old, no 5-year-old knows that without being taught it. And someone else in my family who was close to my age was also the same way. And it took years to even figure out who had done it. But one of the things I had to do, because here's the thing is when that happened between the ages of like 4 and 7, when that was happening to me, I created my own view of sex as a 4 to 7-year-old. 4 to 7-year-olds can't process that amount of adulthood at that age. But all up into my early 20s, everything to do with sex was ruled by a 4 to 7-year-old's version of what sex means, because that's what was first introduced and taught to it. Yeah. And so I had to do, to me, I'm a visual person. So my thing is I imagined, again, this is why I love this question. I do this with all of the negative agreements that I have found in my life. But I imagined at the time I was 23 when I read this book, I imagined my 23-year-old self right after it happened, lifting up my 4-year-old self and saying the things to that 4-year-old that 4-year-old couldn't possibly understand, but needed to understand. You're beautiful. You're not ugly. What happened to you was ugly. There's nothing wrong with you. It's their ugly. You don't have to carry it. Sex is a beautiful thing between a man and woman that absolutely love each other and are committed to each other. And all the negative agreements that I had made as a kid about that, because what I had found myself doing is I was in my head, I knew sex wasn't supposed to be bad. God wouldn't make it feel so amazing if it was bad. So why did it feel bad? Why did I feel ugly? Why did I feel dirty when I had any kind of sexual contact with a woman? So I went back and talked to that 4 to 7-year-old. And to be honest with you, up into my mid 30s, I had to turn around and go back to the 23-year-old and go, hey, let's work on this again. Let's talk about, and go back to the 4-year-old and go, okay, we've learned a lot. We read Lou's book about how to absolutely pleasure a woman. So
it's not bad.
No,
right?
No. And it's, so you constantly go back and revisit making healthier and more appropriate agreements. But I love the visual of going back. Yes, I would never change what happened to me. But I absolutely would love to go back and mentor my younger self and change the way they processed it and accepted the traumas that they went through. And that's the only way you can actually move forward from today in the healthier way.
No, I agree.
So I love that question.
So, my friend, we are going to have to wrap up episode 1 here, but I think all of our viewers have absolutely gotten a taste of who we both are. What do you think?
I do too. I'm really looking forward to this. I appreciate being here and having the chance to do this with you. I know we've done it a few times, just you and I, just talking to each other about life. I'm really happy to be able to put this out there.
Me as well. I really am. So we will be putting together episode 2 and episode 3 very soon for all of you. We will be posting out there exactly what those episodes are going to be so that you can participate. But just to give you kind of a sneak peek, we're going to be talking about hormone replacement therapy and how it affects men and women and the opposite sex and how they view it. We're going to be talking about past traumas and triggers. We're going to be talking about so many different things, and the 4 agreements is going to come up on numerous occasions. I have ordered the book myself, so I'm very excited about that so that we can go into more discussion about that. And we look forward to seeing all of you in future episodes.
So I know, so my Facebook speaking page is Eddie Cunningham. You can find it on there. And then my Instagram is Edified Living. What were yours?
Mine is actually Tina Valiant. I also have Relationship Real Estate if you want to see more on what we're doing with real estate. I also have Finding Your Voice. It's called Book Finding Your Voice. That is another one of my pages. And we have many more things coming up on all of those. I also have a private women's Facebook page called what is it called? Women Thriving Together with Tina V. And Eddie is actually the only male allowed on that page, so that if women have a question that they'd like to ask a man about why do men think this, or it seems that men think that he is on there to help guide, but he's the only woman allowed on that page. So,
cool.
Absolutely. I also have a website that I should probably mention, and that's tinavaliant.com, where you can actually purchase my books and see any upcoming events that we all have.
Yay.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you. Great episode 1, Eddie. Let me clear out. All right.